Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Learn English Through Stories. Today, we have an intriguing, heartfelt story for you perfect for practicing English, expanding your vocabulary, and learning a little about romance along the way. The story is called The Probability of Love at First Sight. And it's all about a surprising encounter between two strangers on a flight from New York to Paris. In this episode, we'll cover the first part of the story, exploring key vocabulary, phrases, and expressions while diving into the emotional twists and turns of this captivating tale. Alright, so sit back, relax, and let's embark on a language learning journey through love, chance, and the unforgettable moments shared by two strangers meeting on the plane. Our story begins with a 19-year-old American girl who's on a flight from New York to Paris. Picture this, she's seated next to a young, charming Ukrainian man. At first, they're just two strangers with their own plans, destinations, and lives. But as they begin talking, an unexpected chemistry sparks between them. You know, sometimes the most memorable conversations happen when we least expect them. To really understand the depth of this story, let's focus on some key phrases. They'll help us build a rich understanding of the setting and emotions. Vocabulary and phrases. First, let's talk about engrossed in banter. In this context, engrossed means to be deeply involved or absorbed in something. So when we say she's engrossed in banter, we mean she's completely wrapped up in light, fun conversation. Banter is playful, friendly chat, something that often brings people closer without them realizing it. When was the last time you had a conversation like that? Something light-hearted but surprisingly meaningful? For English learners, practicing banter can be incredibly helpful, as it often involves quick exchanges, humor, and expressions. Now let's look at a phrase that describes their meeting, a chance encounter. This means an accidental or unexpected meeting. In English, we often use the word chance to talk about random occurrences or things that happen without planning. For instance, you might say, I had a chance encounter with my friend at the cafe. Expressing first impressions. Now, let's dive into some expressions you might use when describing a first impression, like in this story. For example, when she meets him, she might think, he seems interesting, or he has a charming smile. Using seems or appears is a subtle way of expressing an observation that may change as you get to know someone better. It's often used when we're unsure but curious. And speaking of charm, describing someone as charming or charismatic adds a positive twist, suggesting they're interesting or likable. This can also be used to compliment others, such as, you have a very charismatic personality. In English, we often talk about first impressions using phrases like, he comes across as, she gives the impression that, he seems like. Listeners, think of someone you recently met and try to describe your first impression of them in English. Try saying, she came across as, or they seemed like. The power of the past tense. Now, let's go into the grammar that helps make stories powerful, the past tense. Since most stories are told after they happen, the past tense becomes our main tool. In English, we say things like, she met a charming person. They talked for hours. They laughed and shared stories. Using the past tense helps us feel like we're reliving the experience, which makes the storytelling so much more engaging. It's a simple rule, but essential for making a story feel complete and easy to follow. Conversational style. Alright, let's practice some pronunciation with a few phrases you can use to sound more conversational. Here's a tip, imagine you're telling this story to a friend. Try repeating after me. I met someone interesting on the plane. We talked for hours. It was unexpected. I think there was a connection. Listen closely to how each sentence rises and falls naturally. In English, we often use intonation to convey emotion, like surprise or curiosity. Chance encounters in modern culture. Here's something interesting. Chance encounters like this one often inspire books, movies, and songs. You might have heard of the phrase love at first sight, which is a popular theme in romantic stories across cultures. It's the idea that two people feel an instant connection when they meet, even if it's just for a short time. In fact, this story is part of a larger genre called romantic realism, where ordinary settings, like an airplane or a cafe, become the backdrop for meaningful interactions. People love these kinds of stories because they feel possible. They give us hope that magic can happen even in the most routine parts of life. Have you ever experienced or read about a love at first sight moment? Think about how you would describe it in English. So, in today's episode, we've introduced the start of the probability of love at first sight, and explored expressions, grammar, and cultural connections. As we follow this story, try to imagine yourself as the main character. Picture yourself in the plane, meeting someone intriguing, sharing your thoughts, laughing, and wondering if this connection could be something more. And remember, practicing English with stories like these not only helps you with vocabulary and grammar, but it also allows you to connect emotionally with the language. In our next episode, we'll dive deeper into their conversation, uncovering more phrases and exploring how this connection develops after they leave the plane. So stay tuned, keep practicing, and don't forget love, like language, can happen when we least expect it. Thanks for listening to Learn English Through Stories. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. And feel free to share your thoughts in the comments or on our social media. I'd love to hear if you've ever had your own chance encounter in English. Until next time, keep practicing. Stay curious, and let your English journey be as exciting as any love story.